Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story comes from StunningWay9393 from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. It's got some trigger warnings on it, some pretty heavy ones, so please pay attention. It says stalking, harassment, and attempted rape is in the story as well, so if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. And it was titled, Am I the Arsehole Here for having my ex arrested at my wedding? This happened 2 days ago at mine, 28, and my wife's 39 wedding. And a lot of people are telling me I'm in the wrong for having my ex, 27, arrested, and my wife is saying I ruined the wedding and caused a scene. First, a little backstory on my ex. We were together over 5 years ago for a matter of weeks. I broke things off because I just wasn't into her that much. She began to pester me over text and social media all the time to get back together or just hook up. This went on for months, and in a particular weak moment I gave in and slept with her again, and at this point things got a lot worse. I tried to explain that it was a mistake and I still didn't want anything with her. From then the messages ranged from abusive to begging me for sex. Eventually I just blocked her. From then she started turning up at my house, work and social spaces I went to often. She attempted to force herself on me and threatened violence, and at that point I got a restraining order. Since then, I haven't heard from her in years. I met my wife 3 years ago, and she is honestly the best thing in my life. We fell in love hard and honestly have a great relationship. We got engaged after 2 years and 2 days ago finally had our wedding. The day was going amazingly until a friend of mine who I'll call Chris turned up with his +1, my ex. I spoke to him and he had absolutely no idea about my history with her, and we tried to get her to leave. After she refused, I decided to just ring the police. 2 officers showed up to arrest her for breaking a restraining order and she flipped out. She was shouting and screaming. She hurled abuse at my wife and claimed that we were meant to be together, which obviously distracted from our wedding. Now my wife is upset with me for causing a scene, and a lot of our friends are saying that I should have just ignored it and focused on the day because she wasn't causing any problems up until the police showed up. So am I the arsehole here? Edit to answer some questions I've had. Yes, my wife knew I had a restraining order against the stalker. We spoke about it when we started to become serious. A few family members also knew, but my friends didn't, as I've never spoke to them about it. Who are these people that saying just ignore her? They're massively downplaying what that actually was. This wasn't some awkward ex showing up out of spite. This was a woman with a restraining order against her for stalking, harassment and threats and attempting to force herself on him. And let's face it, she knew exactly what she was doing by turning up at this wedding. The scene was caused by her, not by him calling the police. If someone violates a restraining order, you don't keep the peace and hope they behave, you deal with it immediately. And let's face it, she was going to do something. She didn't turn up to be all peaceful and nice. She was going to do something at some point during that wedding. Honestly, the most concerning part is how casually some people are dismissing OP in this situation like this. A commenter says to OP, you had a restraining order for a reason. I believe she was very well aware of it and knew what the consequences could have been. She knew better than to be attending. Who knows what plan she had in mind before she was taken away. Knowing that she was there and having the fear, you would not have enjoyed yourself if you would have let her stay. Opie says God knows her intentions, but everyone seems to think she was doing nothing wrong and was harmless. Captain Shan says, I doubt people would be so negative if the genders were reversed. She's a stalker. She knew it was your wedding and violated a restraining order. It's worrying your wife doesn't understand why this is a concern. How would she feel if her stalker came to the wedding? Opie says, I'm hoping she's just angry at the situation rather than me, and we'll see it from that point of view once she's calmed down a bit. Stallion says, not the arsehole. She used Chris to get to your wedding and cause trouble. You did what you had to do to protect yourself and your wife. I feel bad for Chris though. Poor guy just got in the crossfire. Opie says, from what I understand, Chris had been with her for about 4 months and knew nothing about any of it. Commodore says, as in, didn't know you had dated her at all. Opie says, no. I was only with her a couple of weeks, and all of this wasn't something I told my friends at the time, as it was all rather embarrassing, so he didn't know about her at all. A commenter, who was downvoted by the way, says, I think this one is subjective, and while I think personally not the arsehole, I think your wife's opinion is the only one that matters here. Whoa, what? Opie says, I understand why my wife is upset, but I don't know how to fix it. Commenter says, what did your wife want you to do in the moment? Opie says, I didn't tell her at the time as I didn't want her to worry about it. I was hoping the police would escort her away quietly, which to be fair, they did try to. Commenter replies saying, okay, but currently, as your wife is upset about it, has she said what she would have wanted to happen? You said she's upset you caused the scene, so has she expressed to you what she feels you did wrong in that moment? Opie says no. I asked what I should have done instead, and she just didn't have an answer, just not that. Opie also says thank you, and yes, I did panic at the time, and there was no plan in place because I actually have not heard from X since the restraining order was put in place, so I thought it was all over. A commenter, which again was downvoted, says he had more than a temporary restraining order. Most of them expire. Why let her distract from the day? Were you physically afraid of her? Opie says, I left quite a bit out of everything that happened in order to get a permanent restraining order, but no, mine will not expire. The commenter says, wow, not the arsehole. But I have some questions about your wonderful wife. She doesn't get that you might be traumatized by having your stalker show up. That maybe you needed to make it clear to this nutbar that she may not approach you. Your ex clearly schemed to get into a place she didn't belong. I find it pretty red flag behavior that your wife is angry at you, not grateful that you're safe and wanting to find out how to keep you that way, especially after your ex's little display. It'd be wise to think twice before signing that marriage certificate if you haven't already. Opie says from what others have commented, I'm pretty sure my wife isn't angry with me, but just angry and has nowhere else to direct it at the moment. And I found the wife's reaction in this pretty awful as well. Because what exactly was Opie supposed to do? Spend the whole wedding wondering what she might do next? Hope she leaves quietly, ignore someone who has a legal order against them being there? I'd be more concerned for Opie if I was the wife in that situation, that they're okay. But Opie does come in with an update and says, I got a lot of requests for an update on my original post, so here it is. It's been a very long day since I first posted. I've spoken to both my wife and Chris. Starting with my wife. We had a very long, tearful conversation about everything from my ex to our wedding. I apologized for the fact that I didn't consider involving her before calling the police, which meant that X's outburst when being escorted out came as a complete surprise to her. She apologized for the way she reacted, explained that she wasn't angry at me, but is angry at X. The fact that the wedding was ruined and the focus was shifted away from us and to the ex. Her anger was misdirected. Another reason for the anger is that a lot of guests had no idea who X was. So X's comment of we're meant to be together has apparently led to people theorizing that I've been cheating on my wife with X. So we are now having to put out fires before rumors began to spread. My wife is now very much focused on making sure I'm okay after all of this though. She is still distraught about our special day being ruined, but we will work through that together. On to Chris. This is where things get a little scary. Me and wife called him together firstly to check that he is okay. He is, and secondly, to see how the hell she's managed to worm her way into his life in order to get to my wedding. According to Chris, they connected over social media. She started liking his posts over the course of a month and then DM'd him, and they started chatting from there. The crazy part is that to Chris, X has a completely different name, but the post on her profile dated back 3 years, meaning she's had this profile with a fake name for at least 3 years, and it's not the only one. Chris told us that a few other guys contacted him after the wedding saying that they recognized her, and they all also got DMs from her on different accounts, all with a different name. There's at least 3 other accounts that we are currently aware of. Apparently, X showed no signs of being obsessed with me, or even that she knew who I was. He invited her as a +1, thinking they might eventually get serious as they were having a really good time together. He's apologized profusely, but we've made it clear that we do not blame him for this. There's been no word currently on what's going on with X, but consider her breaching the restraining order and resisting arrest, we assume she'll probably end up in prison. Me and wife have spoken about it, and if we're contacted by the police, we will absolutely press charges, and wife will also be getting a restraining order. For now, we're going to try and enjoy our honeymoon and deal with the rest of this mess when we get back. Thank you Reddit for all the advice and opinions. You gave a lot of perspectives on the situation that I had not considered. And one of the top commenters says to this, North Peace, as well, that's terrifying. There is no way she spent months/years trying to get in this guy's life/wedding just to sit quietly on the sidelines. She was planning something. Another commenter says, I'm somewhat impressed. I barely handle adulting, and here's someone apparently at least superficially adulting and having time to stalk OP and catfish multiple people using Facebook and develop at least one relationship enough to get a +1 to the right wedding. Imagine what she could accomplish if she weren't banana pants crazy. And another commenter says, it's so sad that OP didn't feel like he could tell his friends about the situation before she had the chance to fuck up their big day. Men have got to start showing up more in their friendships. Obviously this is an extreme scenario, but no one should have to go through this sort of thing alone. I really hope they're stepping up now in the aftermath, and all of them take this as a lesson in the need to be there for each other. Secondly, the stalker is fucking wacko. She wasted years throwing bombs in so many lives, and for what? And a lot of people hating on the wife at the same time. But what do you guys make of this situation? Holy moly, let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Our next story comes from Credit Electronics 6730 and says, am I the arsehole for accidentally breaking up my manager's affair? I, 27 female, am an English teacher in Japan. I work at a company that sends me all over the prefecture to teach. My furthest class is 40 minutes away. It's mainly women in their 40s and 50s. I alternate the class with my manager, 41 male, let's call him Dave. Dave's married to a Japanese woman and has a toddler. A few weeks back I was teaching our shared class. The students wanted to ask me questions during the warm-up. They asked if I had a husband and questions about my family back home. One of them, we call her Mika, 43 female, suddenly asked if Dave had a girlfriend, and I said he's married with a child. She looked shocked, as did the others, and they pushed me again to confirm, so I did. I hadn't thought anything of it until last week, when Dave called me into his office. He was visibly upset. He asked if I told the students about his family, and I said that I had. He was super angry and told me never to talk about his family again with students. I was still a bit confused, but apologized and said okay. This week, Mika wasn't in class, and I noticed she wasn't in the attendance roll. I asked the others, and they said she quit the class. It all made sense now. When I left class, Mika was waiting for me. She asked me if I was telling the truth about Dave or if I was confused. I said nothing but pulled out my phone and showed her his Facebook photos of him and his family, which I made sure to screenshot. I went to the head office this morning to teach, and Dave came into my classroom after class and he's very angry. He closed the door and loomed over me saying, I told you not to talk about my family with students. I asked what he meant, and he asked me what I said to Mika. I said I didn't say anything, and that she technically wasn't a student anymore, so I didn't see any issue. I then said he seemed awfully concerned about me telling the students about his family, and that perhaps the owner of the school would like to know why my students were quitting the class. He stormed out. I'm quietly hoping this is the end of it, but something tells me there are students that think he's single. That OP didn't accidentally break up an affair. She answered a completely normal question with a completely normal answer. The fact that everyone in the class looked shocked immediately just tells you that Dave has been bullshitting his way and presenting himself as single. And honestly, the more concerning part for me is him cornering OP alone in a classroom and trying to intimidate her over it. Huge red flags all around. And also again, Mika asking privately shows she probably wanted to believe there was some misunderstanding because he'd clearly lied to her for a while. OP showing the proof wasn't malicious, it was preventing Dave from gaslighting her into thinking she imagined everything. A commenter says to OP, not the arsehole, but secure your bases quickly. Reach out to company HR and let them know that your manager is pressuring you. Don't let him spin this to your disadvantage. The situation is actually harmless for you. You spoke in your classroom during warm-up about family and home. This is a very legit language class topic. His marriage and his family status are public knowledge. You didn't share any details about their relationship or private details, I assume, so the fault is with your manager. And the principle for him is, fuck around, find out. Commenter says, not the arsehole, and I think that in fact yes, the owner of the school would like to know. Think of it as a cover your ass now that you're on Dave's bad side. Another commenter says, tell the owner. It doesn't matter if adultery by men is seen as culturally permissible, it is bad for business. They will lose students and get a bad reputation which will lower new admissions. It doesn't matter the reason for the owner's motivation, he will stop it. Another commenter says, you are not the arsehole, but for people saying go to HR and all. This is Japan, and what people think is normal and all is a lot different than in the States or elsewhere. Like I would not be shocked at all to learn that OP would be told to not say anything anymore and just keep quiet so it would not hurt the school image. Also, cheating is seen differently in Japan. How insane is that? You can look it up and how it is viewed. Not saying that all people feel like that, but heard enough stories in Japan of spouse not being kind if you tell them. But OP, do what you think is right. I think you handled it amazing, but personally would not get involved more. But OP comes in with her first update in terms of an edit and says, thanks for all the comments. I got a Facebook message request from Mika and I accepted it. She sent me screenshots of text between her and Dave. Let's just say they were spicy. I think she's heartbroken and I feel sorry that she got duped by him. He's so trash. Today we had a monthly staff meeting. The owners talked about a new contract they won and the staffing. At the end, Dave got up and gave a speech about keeping teachers' personal information confidential for safety reasons. I glared at him while he spoke. We don't have an HR department because we are a small company. The owners are a Canadian man and his Japanese wife. I'm still torn about whether or not to speak with the owners. I'm worried that it'd be easier to get rid of me versus Dave. OP comes in with another update and said I had a very interesting conversation with another teacher. Let's call him Jim. After Dave's teacher privacy speech at the staff meeting on Monday. Jim is a 36-year-old American male. He had a wife here who's currently pregnant. He said that he helped Dave host a Christmas party for students at another center back in December. It's a center where I haven't taught. Jim, during the party, some of the students were asking how his wife was doing with a pregnancy. One made a comment like, "You'll be the first Asian, foreign teacher, to be a father at the school." And Jim started to say something about, and Dave quickly cut him off and changed the subject. Jim thought it was awkward but hadn't thought anything of it. I told Jim what happened with Dave and Mika. He told me I have to bring this to the owners. Although he doesn't have proof of Dave doing the same thing at the other school, he said it seems sus. I've made an appointment to see both managers on Friday afternoon. I've decided to show them the screenshots that Mika sent me. Wish me luck. I'm so nervous. So OP comes in with a second update and says, I had my meeting today with the owners. The Canadian owner, Brian, came to the meeting. His wife, Naomi, couldn't make it. I was honestly so nervous because I really liked this job and didn't want to jeopardize it, but was concerned that Dave wouldn't let it go. There's a lot of travel involved, but I can study on the train between classes. I printed the screenshots that Mika sent me of the spicy text exchange between her and Dave, so I had receipts. I also keep a record of dates and times where the events happened. When I sat down, I felt absolutely sick. Brian asked if I wanted water and looked very concerned. I started from the beginning and made sure to apologize for talking about another teacher's personal life in class, and that it was an honest mistake. I told him about Mika sending me a message request on Messenger and the screenshots which I produced from my bag. I told him that Dave had cornered me in my classroom. Finally, I pulled out my employment contract and pointed to the clause that stated that it is strictly prohibited to have a relationship with a student outside of class, and I said it was likely the same for Dave. At this point, my hands were shaking and I felt sweaty. Brian sat there quietly for a minute, processing and looking very concerned. He said that it was an honest mistake on my part and that he was glad that I had the courage to come to him with the information because it looked bad from a business perspective for teachers to be dating students. He told me not to worry about Dave, that he was the one who was in the wrong by crossing a line with a student. He said he'd talk to Naomi about the situation and decide the best way forward. He also said my job was safe and not to worry about it over the weekend. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Dave now. I'll update next week when I find out. OP edits the post and says, I went for drinks with some other teachers last night. After a couple of drinks, we were more relaxed, and one of them said that Dave had been trying to dig up dirt on me on the last week or so. He asked if I hung out with students outside of class or if I'd been late to class. I don't hang out with students outside of class because it's prohibited, so I'm safe. I didn't tell them about Dave and Mika because I'm sure it'll come out next week. Seriously, giving desperate vibes on his part. And OP comes in with a final update and says, I ended up being out of the office last week because I was filling in for a sick teacher, but I'm in a group chat with some of my colleagues, so I was kept in the loop. And they said on Monday, Dave had been taken off the teaching schedule. There was an announcement on Friday that Dave was leaving the school. That was a week after my chat with the owner. I'm honestly shocked that it was that quick. I've just come out of a meeting with both of the owners. They said that Dave decided to quit. I got a lecture on not talking about other teachers' personal stuff in class from the Japanese owner. The meeting ended on them thanking me again for coming forward, so a bit of a confusing meeting all in all. I'm glad that things went the right way for OP, but I still found myself a little bit annoyed that they gave OP a lecture or whatever they did at the very end there, because this fucking Dave here was lying to students about being single, having inappropriate relationships with students, intimidating a co-worker, and then trying to dig up dirt to save himself. The focus should have been 100% on him being an absolute arsehole. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now our next story comes from Ultra Lusk from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit, and says, am I the arsehole here because I went back on my promise to pick my girlfriend up on days I'm not working. So I work 4 days that are 12-hour shifts, and I get 4 days off each week. My girlfriend doesn't drive, and I'm the only one who can. On the days I have off, I will pick her up and drop her off at home. Lately, I've gotten really tired of having to drive around all the time. Sometimes she will ask me for lifts to work, and sometimes she will ask me to drop her off somewhere. Sometimes she will ask me to drop her off and then have me wait over an hour in the parking lot for her to finish, because by the time I get home, it'd be too late for me to relax. Today, she has an appointment at the mall. It's about 10 minutes away, walking distance from us. My girlfriend wanted me to pick her up from her job and drop her off at home, and then after 30 minutes of rest, she needed me to drop her off at her appointment, and then she wanted me to pick her up from the mall. I told her I would, but I really didn't want to because I'm getting tired of driving. I should also note it's also raining outside, but it appears to be dying down. I told her I'd drop her off at her appointment, but I didn't want to pick her up because I'm tired of driving. She got upset with me and asked me why, and I told her I was getting tired of driving and the mall was only 10 minutes away on foot. She told me she didn't want to walk and that she has a headache, and I also agreed to pick her up from her appointment. After pouting about it, I relented and agreed to pick her up from her appointment, but I wouldn't pick her up from school the next day. She then told me that she needed me to pick her up from school tomorrow because she needed to get things from Costco, and she got mad at me because I already agreed on my days off I would always come pick her up. Now, we are both upset with each other. She is mad at me because she feels I'm going back on my word when I already agreed to do these things. I'm mad at her because I feel like I'm not a person in her eyes, and me being tired of driving isn't a legitimate excuse for her. Just to clarify, I work shift work, so I work 4 days straight and I get 4 days off after I finish. Edit, I want to also make clear that she isn't a bad person. I love her and I don't think she is intentionally taking advantage of me. I just feel like she doesn't see me as a person, and I'm not afforded an exemption or time off picking her up. The edit made me feel like double sorry for OP because, he's clearly trying to protect their image, but describing this awful behavior at the same time. Because it's one thing to ask for the odd ride here and there, appreciate rides from your partner, but it's another to expect them to be like a standing obligation every single day they're off work, regardless of whether they're tired, just want some downtime, or simply just doesn't feel like driving. And the part where he says he's not afforded an exemption or time off, that's not how it works in a healthy relationship like that. If your partner says, I'm exhausted, I need a break, the response shouldn't be pouting and guilt tripping or reminding them of a promise he made months ago. She's treating him like a chauffeur, not a boyfriend, and it's quite that simple. Greedy wins, says the OP, not the arsehole. It's not realistic at all for you to be driving around everywhere like you're a chauffeur. It's okay to tell her that you made that commitment before realizing how unrealistic it is and that you both need to come up with a different plan. She needs to find her own ride sometimes, and she should understand why. If she doesn't, and she doesn't see you as a person and doesn't care about how she affects you, then it's time to reevaluate whether you even want to be with her. OP responded saying, to be fair, she does work on getting rides to her workplace. She typically carpools with her co-workers. Sometimes she asks me to drive her because she's running late. Commented response saying, how old are you and how old is she? How long have you been together and do you live together? Right now this reads as not the arsehole because you're basically a servant having to be available on your days off every time she decides she wants to go somewhere. OP says she's 35 and I'm 34 and we've lived together for 4 years. Commenter replies to that saying, she is treating you like a doormat. You're a boyfriend, not an unpaid chauffeur at her behest. She is a grown adult who should have figured out how to go to work, school, the mall by herself. You may not see it, but she's not a good person. She's a selfish, entitled person trying to gaslight you into thinking that this is normal behavior and expectation. A good person does not abuse their partner like that because the way she is treating you is definitely abuse. An easy way to establish whether this abuse is to ask yourself, would you stay at a job that treated you this way? I had to do a double take when OP said, she's 35. I was expecting sort of late teens, early 20s around there or something. Holy bloody moly. Commenter says, she's the arsehole because why is she doubling down on being mad at you when she should already be feeling bad for making you her personal driver in the first place? If I needed rides all the time like this, I'd be so nice and apologetic for all the inconveniences. She doesn't understand where you're coming from because she doesn't care. She probably thinks it's your job because you're her boyfriend, but that's far from it. So OP does come in with an update and says, in just 1 hour I got a lot of replies and I'm truly grateful for what everyone said. Well, she did indeed walk home on her own and she was incredibly apologetic for our fight. She brought up some of what others have said, namely being that I can't be expected to always drive her if I'm feeling tired or just don't want to drive. Something that I left out in my previous post was how sometimes when she agrees to cook, she doesn't do it because she is too tired, and I never fought with her over that before, and I thought how it's unfair that I'm not awarded the same grace. She agreed with this and realized how much of a hypocrite she was being. She also said other things I didn't think about, namely being that I've driven her around so much that she didn't think I was getting tired of driving, and she wasn't anticipating me ever telling her I just didn't want to drive her places. She also said that if I told her yesterday or the day before, she probably would have been upset about it, so this user was absolutely right in their judgment, and I recognize now that I should have been more timely communicating my problem here. She said she absolutely does see me as a person, and her perspective was that I didn't love her enough to do something for her when she has a headache. That all being said, I still feel not right about the whole thing. I feel like I'm still not being respected as my own person. I like her explanation, but I'm not altogether right with it all. She is chilling in the other room, and while I know she is sorry, I feel like she is still upset. I'm preparing her food for her, and I will speak with her more about it. And there was comments on it, some positive saying it sounds like they've had a solid conversation and things are going in the right direction. I mean, this might be Reddit brain for me talking, but I'm with the top post on this and it says, it sounds like she found and read the original post. Dun dun dun. Other people were saying this just isn't sustainable. You're already burned out and you're providing her with transportation and all this other stuff going on, and it's going to end badly. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here. Truly is absolutely amazing. And hopefully I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care and much love.